You are about to watch a new episode of My Brother's Keeper podcast, a safe space for men here on the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show channel. Healing, empowerment, transformation. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, good evening and welcome to the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. This is the My Brother's Keepers podcast where we talk about men's mental health. We delve deep into it, as deep as the law will allow for this hour and a half that we have together. I am your host, Hilton Young, also known as the poet, GF Soldier. And I just want to introduce my colleagues today that's in the house. We got Pastor Alex Allen, we got my brother Joseph B. Roberts, and we got my brother Carl Roberts, the motivator, in the house. And just want to delve right into it. We have a special guest today, and we are thankful for him coming in today. This brother is a deep brother. He's about as deep as they get, deep as they come. Very intelligent brother, educated brother, and he has a testimony, and he has a story for us. This man is a man of God, and because of his faith, and because of his perseverance and his tenacity and his fortitude and his capacity to keep going in spite of trials or tribulations, this is the man to talk to. And I'm so excited to have you on here. Welcome, Dr. Marvin Cotton Jr. He's also the author of the book and Better Not Broken, and we're going to get him to really talk to us today on that. Before we get into the book, Doc, won't you tell us a little bit about yourself, man?
Thank you. First off, I'm very honored to be here. When you were introducing me, I'm thinking somebody else was getting ready to come on the screen. I'm like, so I most certainly appreciate the words, and it means more when it's coming from someone like yourself and the work that you do, and just you acknowledging that. I really appreciate it. I still feel, I guess you could say, a little uneasy when somebody's pouring it on me like that, because I come from an environment for 20 years of my life that I spent in prison, where that type of talk does not exist in there. So a little bit about myself. I did 19 years, 7 months, and 12 days in prison for a crime I did not commit, and I was exonerated, meaning I was able to prove my innocence, and that's how I got out of prison. So the natural life sentence without the possibility of parole that I was sentenced to, I was able to escape that death plot for a little over 4 years ago. And, it's an honor to be able to talk about my experiences on this podcast today because, mental health is a constant battle of ups and downs in that environment, especially an unnatural environment like that. And fortunately, I not only survived that environment, I survived that environment well enough to talk about my experiences, because a lot of men and women that have gone through what I've gone through, they are not in a position mentally and emotionally to even talk about their experiences. They're still kind of buried under it, although they may be free. So a little bit more about myself. Like I said, I've been out a little over 4 years now. And when I got out of prison and when I seen the conditions that the community that I was born and raised and that I love was in, I immediately dived into the work of trying to heal and make the community better. So as I was undergoing the process of a healing process for myself, I was trying to build the plane while I was flying it. So I'm in the community working while I'm working on myself at the same time. And that's been a battle, but it's also been beautiful to be able to help people out despite that which I've been through. My story have inspired others to kind of go through what they're going through and get to the other side. And it's also therapeutic to myself to be able to help people despite what it is that I've gone through.
Amen. So, a lot of what you're saying right now, I know it was a point where you had to get to this point. And the book is probably the most quintessential uh, topic for what's being talking about today. It says better but not broken. But at some point before you got better, you were broken, right? So when I'm assuming that you're talking about your current state when you say you're better but not broken.
Yeah.
So was there
Yeah.
a period of brokenness that you had to deal
Uh,
with? And if so, talk to us about that part.
better not broken is not a destination.
Hmm.
It's a condition that you have to constantly wake up and choose. So it's not a destination that once you believe that you've arrived at a certain point that you somehow stop. The pieces start falling apart when you think you've arrived. Um, I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. I was born and raised in the neighborhood where I was born and raised in is currently the most violent area in the state of Michigan. This is where my roots were at. So I was born into a broken society, a broken community. I was born into a broken family, a family that has a lot of trauma. I was raised in the streets, not only in the neighborhood, but literally in the streets. So there's so much about my life that is broken. So of course, I didn't start off in a better situation, if you will. It was when the circumstances around my case and the corruption around my case crashed into my life and shattered me into even smaller pieces that I began to recognize that I was broken and started putting the pieces back together. So although I was in prison, although I was fighting a natural life sentence, although I was fighting against all of this corruption and these lies and this wrongful conviction, I was aware enough to know that I wasn't where I was supposed to be, and that I needed to do something to fix it. And I didn't know what it was. I just know I needed to do something, and I started the process of growing and reading and studying and building myself up spiritually, building myself up mentally and emotionally, and starting to really identify the weaknesses and the flaws that I had. I figured since I'm in here for something I didn't do, maybe I can analyze some things that I have done. Maybe I can start to do some justice to myself, even though I'm in a situation where I didn't get justice. And that's how my process begun. It's something about being by yourself, and no distractions, nobody pulling you in one way or another. You just in the oven by yourself. You in a prison cell by yourself. You don't have all of the fancy TVs and all of the phones and the distractions. It's just you and your thoughts. And if you're lucky and blessed and fortunate, you find God and you realize that you're not in that cell by yourself, and you can actually start the process of growth. And that's how my story really begun. You have to unmute, brother Hilton. You have to
So
unmute.
so I got you. Yeah, sorry about that. 19 years, 7 months, 12 days. At any point during that time, was there some feelings of hopelessness? Was there some feelings where you wanted to give up on life, knowing that you had this sentence for something that you did not do? I mean, there are people who want to give up on life knowing good and well they did what they did and still got a long sentence. There's some people who deal with hopelessness, who deal with depression and anxiety and all that stuff. But I cannot imagine how much more heavy the burden is and how heavy the weight is to serve that amount of time knowing that you were innocent. So were there
Yeah.
ever a time where you wanted to give up and it was hopelessness there? And kind of talk us through what happened, what took place. Where, was there a breakthrough somewhere in there where you said, okay, I'm not going to give up? I'm not as hopeless as I was. What got you from that place of hopelessness and trials to that place of, healthiness and triumph?
I never felt hopeless.
Okay.
That's the raw, honest truth. I always knew that I would get out of prison. I didn't know it was gonna take 20 years, brother.
Right.
At all. I always thought my next court date or my next hearing or my next appeal was when I was going home. I never saw decades. I never saw beyond the court date. But when I was in my third year in prison, um, this is about the time that where everything that I had, I've lost. Any property, most of the relationships, I lost contact with most people. About 90% of the people that I was in contact with in my first year of being incarcerated. So 3 years in, it's real tight where, you got mama, I have, was blessed enough to still have contact with my daughter. And I had a few other friends that was there. So I was losing everything. So that added a lot of pressure to me. I was losing everything. But in my third and fourth year, God started to show me pictures or visions of me being free,
Hmm.
like early on. So he gave me the cheat code. He was showing me that I would be free. And I believed it so much that it carried me throughout those years. Don't mean I didn't suffer. Don't mean I didn't see a lot of things or was a part of a lot of things that caused, mental and emotional and trauma to my life. But I always knew that I would be free. I always knew that I would prevail, and I knew the truth would set me free because I seen it.
Mhm. Okay, so that time that you were incarcerated, did you notice any corruption in the criminal justice system while you was trying to find your way out there? And if so, how corrupted is the system that, from your experience, that you wish they would, kind of work on a little bit, or what you think you can do in terms of, kind of adding your leadership in it to try to uh, expose and dispose of some of the corruption in the system.
I do a lot of interviews. Probably done maybe 200 podcast shows, right? And that's a new question. So I appreciate that. I always love to get new questions.
Mhm.
And if I understand, your question was, um, what corruption did I see within the institutions while I was there,
Did
and
you
what can be
experience?
done?
Yes.
Oh,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Hmm.
You would think being in prison, and everybody's in prison, you would think that you don't experience racism. But if you young and you black,
Hmm.
you are targeted more. The older black guys actually kind of age out of being targeted as much, but the younger black guys they're targeted by officers, like just constantly targeted, because they know that they haven't developed emotional intelligence, so they can push their buttons and get a response out of them. And that's oftentimes how the officers do they 8 hours. They come in there, they go to work, they want to be entertained, they want to get things to kind of keep their hours going by so that they can just whatever. And they come in there and they push people buttons, they destroy their property, they prevent them from getting things that they need. I know you need tissue, but I'm not giving you any tissue. Get away from my desk. But you need tissue, you got to use the bathroom. So, of course, it's going to cause a reaction.
Hmm.
If you write a complaint against them, then they go in your cell, they tear your cell up. I've experienced that as well. Deny you visits, cancel your visits, write fake tickets on you to take your parole. Now, parole was never an option for me, but I've seen officers lie on people to get their paroles taken. My first day in prison, this was my first day in prison, not the county jail. This was after I was found guilty. Then I was sentenced, and the very next day they sent me to prison. My first day in prison, my first day in prison, there was a guy that had wrote some sort of complaint on the officer. All of that was new to me, but I remember hearing bits and parts of it. And when I was coming in, the officer, I guess he had his hearing, and was either found liable or whatever, but he was upset. He was crying. He was beating on the walls and everything. And he left out. They made him leave the institution. And later on that night, the officers came to the cell and got the guy that had, wrote the paperwork on his officer, handcuffed him, took him down to the desk, hog-tied him, and they beat him all night so that everybody can hear it. So this was day one. And they beat him all, when I say all night. So some of the guys that was in there started lighting fires, throwing fires out the cells. Officers started pepper spraying everybody. This was day one. I'm like, if this is what prison is going to be like, this is day one for me. And it was so traumatic. In my mind, I was trying to find the type of strength that it would take to exist in this type of environment with these things going on. I remember searching myself for what do I need to be? What do I need to grow into for this type of environment? Can I handle what he just went through down at that desk while he was screaming for his life and screaming for his mama in prison? And that had a lasting effect on me, and I'm sure everybody else that was there.
Okay, so that lasting effect, that trauma, how badly does it affect you today? And if you still are suffering from that type of trauma, how do you cope with it today? What kind of strategies do you use to cope with it?
My response to that, as well as a lot of the things that takes place in prison, the biggest thing that motivated me was turning myself into a weapon. I worked out all the time. I wanted to make my body harder than any knife that was in there. I studied and I read. I wanted to build my mind to be stronger and to think faster than everybody in that environment. I conducted myself almost like a robot in that environment. I didn't smile. I didn't play. I was extremely disciplined. I was a vegan for most of the years that I was in there. I just went extreme on every level because I wanted to put myself in the very best combat, not only mental, but also physical position that I could possibly be in. That was my response to that environment, is to be the best. I'm going to be better than everyone, as well as turn myself into the type of weapon that the officers that set me up and put me in prison, detectives that set me up and put me in prison, no one can ever do that type of thing to me again. That was like my initial motivating factors that turned me into the man that I was then. And then when I seen, being smarter, I was able to help people more. And then it became about service. First, it was all about me. And when I seen people started to rely on me, I said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be serving. It's not about me at all. And that's when I started mentoring and teaching and speaking and organizing, which got me in a lot of trouble in prison because they don't want you to be none of those things. And I had a lot of influence. And the influence that I had kept me safe from officers. But it did get me in a lot of trouble as far as sending me. I went to 14 different prisons. And they applied a lot of pressure in order to break me, send me to some really horrible places in order to isolate and break me.
So did it get to the point where, and fellas, if y'all have questions, please don't let me hog it. Don't let me hog it.
And I got pretty thick skin, so you can ask me anything. I'm a pretty open book, and especially if anybody can learn from a question that you ask me.
Well, that's understood, but we're on a podcast where we're talking about good mental health, so hopefully you won't have to develop any thick skin, because that would sound like a defense mechanism, and I think all of us as Black men, we got some thick skin, so hopefully we're in an environment where you won't have to use the thick skin. Hopefully we can make you feel safe enough that you won't have to go to that second gear to pull out the thick skin. But what I wanted to ask was, at some point, you had that serious look and you worked out and you did what you had to do in order to make yourself into that weapon. Is there at any point where that serious approach turned into a smile, where you could be more active with the brothers and let them know it's okay to, loosen up a little bit, or did you continue to have that harsh weapon of yourself throughout the whole time you were there?
Yes and no.
Mm,
Yes. I developed my social ability as a strategy to be able
gotcha.
to break through other people's shell so that I can teach them. But I had a militant type of mind. My shell didn't come off until about a year after I was out of prison.
Gotcha.
My wife called it putting my human back on.
Mm,
And that's our thing. We out in public, and she feels like I'm disconnected or I'm not having empathy. She tapped me under the table, and I know that means I'm not being human in this situation.
mm,
Put my human back on. So I say about, and a lot of that came from, I describe it like this: when you're in a fight, you don't feel the pain until the next day.
right.
And especially at this age that we are in, you get into a fight, you're okay, or you work out, or you get into a tussle, or you're wrestling with the children or the grandchildren. The next day you feel it. I didn't feel the trauma from prison until I walked out of prison. When the war was over,
Hmm.
a profound numbness came over me.
Hmm.
And it affected my eyesight. It affected my hearing. I felt fuzzy. I felt numb. I didn't feel emotion. I didn't have a response. Everybody was happy. Everybody was crying. I didn't feel any of those things. So I found myself pretending
Hmm.
because I didn't want to look weird
Hmm.
while everybody's experiencing all these emotions due to my exoneration and my freedom.
Hmm.
I didn't feel it. So I found myself pretending like I can feel what they're feeling, and I'm hugging them, but it took me several months to get that
Hmm.
numbness off of me,
Hmm.
to where I actually start, I'm crying about commercials now. But it took some time to get there.
Hmm. So, would you say that you are fully healed from that experience, or are you still in the healing process of
um,
that stage?
I don't think I would use the term fully healed about anything.
Good. That's
you
good.
know I'm 45 years old, and I still feel the pain of stuff I did when I fell off a bike when I was 12. so I don't think I would use the term fully healed with anything. um, but I do have practices that I self-care practices that I do, that I believe give me some sense of balance,
Hmm.
to where I can function and be good for myself and be good for other people.
Hmm. Good, good. Fellas, if y'all feel free to chime in at any time, because I could go. I'm a therapist, so this is what I do. You know what I'm saying? So,
I did have a question. I wanted to jump in. Again, thank you, Dr. Cotton, for being so transparent and sharing your story with us. This is definitely a powerful story, and I'm taking it all in, taking it all in. But what I'm curious to hear from you about is your experience in terms of being able to handle adversity. Specifically, what did you learn about yourself and your ability to handle adversity when you think about how you were before being incarcerated, during incarceration, and then afterwards? I mean, because you as you spoke earlier, you had already started out the gate being in a rough neighborhood, etc. So there's a certain level of survival that has to kick in, being able to handle the toughness of life just from that. But then that transition period into prison and then ultimately out. I'm just kind of curious what that journey looked like for you, and where did you see your areas of growth or changes in the way you approached dealing with the challenges of life?
Yeah. Thank you for that. I was born in a very abusive household. My biological father was very physically abusive, to my mother. So I remember being a child and growing up in that environment. I was scared of every damn thing when I was a child. I remember just being afraid of everything. Loud noises I was afraid of. 4th of July fireworks, I hated. I would hide behind the couch on the 4th of July. I was just afraid. I remember that was so much a part of my life that it was almost like its own character in my life. I didn't learn how to read and write until I was in the county jail at 21 years old. That's when I started the process to learn how to read and write. Because when I was in elementary school, instead of focusing on the work, I was worried about my mother, because I just was in the house with all this arguing and fighting. And, the next day I'm in school and I'm not thinking about anything but my mother. I'm not thinking about this schoolwork. I can't focus on it. And I fell so far behind that catching up, it wasn't even like a concern of mine. But I grew up always feeling afraid. Then my biological father went away and this new boyfriend came. He was even worse than my biological father. And eventually she got with another guy who she eventually married. And, he was a pretty scary guy back then, but he wasn't scary in the household, but he ran them away. And where I believe I get a lot of my resilience from, because I learned how not to be afraid from him. He drilled it in me. He, he taught me a lot of the wrong things, but he taught me how not to be afraid anymore. And I carry that all the way into this very day. So I didn't walk into prison afraid. It was a new environment that I needed to learn how to navigate. But I knew not to break in that environment. It was drilled in me at a very young age. But I think that's where my resilience comes from. Not only the neighborhood I was raised in and the friends that I grew up with, but that particular person in my life that taught me how not to be afraid. So I went into prison. I always wanted peace. I always wanted quietness because I never had it as a child. So once I entered the prison system and became a part of the prison politics, if you will, my whole goal was always to have peace on the prison yard. And I had all types of self-righteous tactics on how I accomplished that. Sometimes I was wrong as hell, excuse my language, it's the truth. But my whole objective was just to have peace. And I accomplished that at 14 prisons that I was at. I was really good at getting everybody to be on the same page. And I believe that is rooted in me never having stability as a child and having a peaceful environment as a child. So when things got chaotic, that's where I function best at. I can function best in a chaotic environment and get everybody on the same page. And I did it time and time again, while I was in there. And I think this might be the first time that I actually said that on a podcast. So you guys just got something new.
All right. Well, that's the idea. Safe space to open up about this, because you're speaking to not just us, but a listening audience that may have some men that tune in that have been dealing with some of those aspects that you just spoke to, and again, don't have the courage to talk about it. So again, I appreciate your transparency and sharing. I do have a quick follow-up, if you don't mind. I know, of course, all the brothers that you have online here, including yourself, we also have that element to us of being God-fearing men. And one of the things that I'm also curious about is, where did God become a player, if you will, in this journey where you now having conversations with him? And just kind of curious, like, what is that conversation like for you? Because I'm thinking for myself personally, even being a man rooted in Christ, if I'm locked up for a crime that I didn't commit, I'm kind of feeling, if I'm being honest, I'm feeling some kind of way. Me and God, I'm looking at like, hey, did I do something? I mean, I know I'm not perfect. Did I do something wrong? Is this a punishment? I'm kind of curious as to, what was that relationship with God like, and how did it transition to where you didn't look at him as being a punisher or penalizer per se, but that he was actually going to be ultimately a part of your journey in terms of leaning on him for strength and comfort to be able to ultimately be in the right frame of mind and overcome this situation to where you can, in the sense of being able to face it head on and not be fearful, and having that confidence that I don't know when it's going to work out, but I believe, and I heard you say that earlier. I knew it was going to work out, even though I didn't know how it was going to take this long or what have you. But I just love to hear you speak to that, what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, my first year and a half, I didn't feel worthy to ask God for anything. It's something about being in the fire and being in a cell by yourself to where you're having conversations with God from day one. But none of my conversations asked for anything. I didn't feel worthy to put a request in. I did not feel worthy to put a request in. In fact, I was in prison before I started to like ask for anything in my prayer. And the initial things that I asked for was strength. I asked to be made better. I asked to be smarter. I always grew up never knowing how smart I am. I never knew until I started to learn and read books. And I'm like, hold up, I'm kind of smart. Everybody's kind of acknowledging that I can think. I never knew that. I never knew it. So immediately the things that I was asking for, God was giving me. It took a while before I asked God to set me free. Because I didn't feel worthy to ask, even though I was in there for something I didn't do. I wasn't living the type of life to where I felt that I can ask for that type of thing. And it just took a lot of growth. And for me to start doing the work and start help other people to where I felt worthy enough to start asking or tapping into that type of power in that relationship, to ask for something, to ask for my freedom, to ask to be back into society so that I can fulfill the things that I had in my heart to do. But it took a while to get there, brother. When I was I fought my case in the county jail for 9 months. And all of the conversations that I had with God, in those prayers, I never asked for anything because I didn't feel worthy.
Wow. I find your answer intriguing in the sense that, because anytime I think about storms in general, it doesn't matter whose storms we're talking about. I try to always kind of connect the dots, like, why is this happening? What am I supposed to get out of this experience? And so to hear you talk about, you just say, I didn't even feel like I was worthy, like I was deserving of it or whatever. I look at storms and just from my own personal experiences and the experiences of others, I say, you know what, sometimes God will allow a storm to come our way to send a message to us. And I look at, in your case, maybe the situation was what it was to show you that you did have value, that you did have worth. I mean, we would have scripted it different where you didn't have to, spend all that time in jail. But, God has a way sometimes of allowing certain situations to come into our lives to kind of shake our world a bit. So not only does it bring our attention, put our eyes on him, but that he now has a chance to pour into, in your case, pour into you and open up to you. Like, brother, you are smart. You do have some intelligence. You do have some value and some worth in this world, despite the circumstances that you grew up in and all of that. And so I appreciate, again, your vulnerability and transparency and sharing like you have. And it just makes me kind of piece it together and say, there was always a purpose in all of this. There was also,
if we can,
some significance.
If we can choose our own, if we can choose our own path, we'll end up right where we started.
Exactly. Because we'll never stretch ourselves the same way that
absolutely we'll take out all of the difficult, we'll take out all of the pain,
right?
We'll take out all the things that take a lot of time. We will take out all of the things that we would need in order to shape us to receive the blessing. We'll take out all of those things, and yet we'll still have our hand out looking for the blessing. But our hands haven't been formed in order to hold the blessing. So I knew early on that I was going through for a purpose. I didn't know exactly what that was, but I knew that I was being shaped. I knew that a lot of things were being beat out of me. Like I said, I wasn't living the type of life to where I felt worthy. So all of those things had to be beat out of me or burnt out of me. But you put things in a fire, it burns off that which is not pure. It burns all that off when you're in the fire. And if you just put something in the fire quickly and you pull it out, I guess I really had something on me. He left me in the fire for 20 years, but it was absolutely necessary, for me to be who I am and doing what I'm doing now. And I'm not foolish enough to believe that just because I went through this thing, this huge thing in my life, that God is finished putting me through things in order to make sure that I'm prepared to do what I'm supposed to do in the future.
Yeah. He's reclaiming your time right now, allowing you to be a blessing to so many people, many of them that you haven't even met yet. So you already blessing us this evening and sharing as you have, man. If we have any doubts about what resiliency look like, you are an example right here what that is. So, we want to reflect back on those nuances that we complaining about and moaning about, reflect on Dr. Cotton, because he has already dropped some gems and nuggets on us. So again, man, I appreciate you sharing.
Yes,
I have a chapter in my book called Suffering Well. It's something I learned about myself. I didn't know that I had the ability to really suffer well. And what I mean by that is I don't suffer people well, but I suffer circumstances very well. You can put me in the worst of circumstances and I will sit there. I will outlast the person that's controlling the circumstance. I've been put in the hole in prison, for fictitious reasons, or and I would never complain. What they're used to is they do something to you, they put you in the hole, and then you're beating on the door, asking for a supervisor, which is a sergeant or a lieutenant, and you're beating on the door. You did this to me, you did that to me. They will put me in a hole, and I go lay down, and I meditate, and I pray. And then I get a little pencil. They give you these little pencils in there, and I stack up on a lot of little pencils, and I just start writing. Never go to the door, never complain, never ask why they put me in there, never ask when they're going to let me out, or none of that. I would just sit in there and suffer the circumstances because I didn't want to give them the pleasure of what they was expecting or anticipating my response would be. But what I learned in that is if you can ignore, pain has a purpose. It has a purpose, and it does not feel good. But if you can get past the pain, and see what the pain is indicating, like the pain is indicating something is wrong. And if you can get past the pain and just deal with the thing that's wrong, you can grow.
Love that. That's powerful, man.
Grow.
That's powerful.
I'm sitting here listening, pardon my four-legged space creature here. It's, I want to say it's erroneous or it's amazing because one thing that's been in my brain all week is no matter where you are, physically, spiritually, mentally, if you're gifted, you're still required to operate. And I think and I believe that that's one thing that we get caught up in the crevice of life, and it's okay to analyze. And like somebody once told me, if you can't progress, don't regress, just reassess. And looking at and listening, Joseph gives us biblically the premise of what it's like to be framed and thrown somewhere you have no business being, you know. But the thing that he does that you did is you stayed operational. You became strategic in a way that you turned your body into a weapon. The first thing you did, you turned your brain into a weapon. And once it starts there, everything else kind of materializes or it manifests itself. And the amazing thing about that is you saw the end before you got there. And a lot of men, you know, especially in this generation, are used to just seeing the actual cup one way versus looking at it from all different angles. You know, we're not
Well,
going to even talk about them, but that's another story.
That's not a good cup on either side. I just want to throw that out there. I'm a Lions fan.
The disrespect. No, I'm kidding. But I love that. The fact that you literally built the thing line up on line, precept upon precept, but you kept that belief that eventually I'm not going to be here. And the thing is, like I tell people all the time, they can't beat you until you quit. you know um that's the amazing I just wanted to interject that. But the PTSD is the question for me. Post-traumatic stress disorder. I am a PTSD survivor. I'm med every day. But at the same time, you do have those moments where you could go to sleep and next thing you know, you're right back where you were, metaphysically, and then you wake up, it's like, okay, I'm here, why am I there? um do you have a bout with that still, or is it kind of a maintenance thing? Kind of like, I know with me, it's maintenance.
When I first got out, it was I experienced things that I did not expect to experience. The day that I walked out of prison, a bunch of the guys, they grabbed my property, walked me across the yard. The officers told them, "Y'all can't do that." They like, "We walking this man out." So they walked me to the building that you have to go through in order to get out of the prison. They walked me all the way into the building, and I left out, and I immediately felt grief of leaving them in prison. I was not expecting to feel grief. I felt sad and I grieved walking out of prison. I was not expecting that, and it hit me really hard. The numbness that I felt was like immediately. I didn't sleep for 8 days. My first 8 days out, I did not sleep. In prison, it's always loud. It's always noise going on. It's never quiet in prison. At night, it's never quiet. And it's never truly dark in prison. It's always some sort of light on. Even in the cell, they keep the light on. At night, they keep it on. Then they turn it on really bright when they make their count round. So they come by and wake you up every 30 minutes or every hour. If something's going on, they might wake you up even more than that. So while you sleep, they shine a flashlight on you until you move. 20 years of going through that. So I still wake up now. I've been out over 4 years. I wake up every 30 minutes throughout the night. But when I first got out, I was living in a motel. My first month out, first 34 days out. And I turned the TV off. It was truly dark in there. And I like dozed off for a second, and I woke up. And I thought I was awake. I thought I had dreamed, because I felt like a dream. Everything felt numb. So I felt like I was dreaming already. Then I woke up in this dark room, and it's quiet. And I scrambled to my feet. I'm trying to find like a light. I'm all on the wall looking for, I thought I was still in prison. So what I did for maybe close to my first year, I would have to sleep with the TV on. So that, and not only TV on, but the volume up. So as soon as I wake up, I know exactly where I'm at. So I wasn't expecting that either. I wasn't expecting to go through that. I had a lot of dreams when I was in prison. And you dream about freedom, and then at some point in your dream, it's a barbed wire fence in it, and you realize you're in prison and you wake up. So I thought every time that I went to sleep that I was going to wake up actually in prison. So, like I said, I wasn't expecting to go through that. I still don't sleep good, but I don't have that type of thing going on anymore, but I still don't sleep.
Gotcha.
So I want to say something. First of all, I'm glad you got out, Dr. Marvin. Glad you found your way out of prison. Some of us are going through the same thing that you went through. I have a brother that's going through the same thing, falsely incarcerated. So do you got any advice for somebody like me, other people that are listening, to have a way to try to make contacts to get out, or go through the same road, or same, but to try to get out of prison?
Okay.
That's just in there and don't know how to get out.
Absolutely. First and foremost, Brother Carl, you got access to me now, so we're gonna talk so we can figure out what's going on, so I can get just a little bit more specific to be able to get you some more specific answers. But number one, never give up. Let your brother know, do not give up. And start from the beginning. I don't know if the family has ever done what is called like a Freedom Information Act request. This is where you do a Freedom Information Act request. You write a letter requesting the entire file. I want the entire file. I want the discovery. I want all police reports. I want all documents, calls, recordings, statements, everything. And you send it to the police department, and you send one to the prosecutor office. They have a certain amount of days to respond to that. They're going to respond, say, hey, we got your thing. We have 7 to 14 days or 7 to 10 days to respond after that. And then they're going to respond and say, we grant it in part. And what they mean by that is, for one, they have to give you the discovery file. You're going to have to pay for it, but they have to give it to you. What they're going to deny is certain information. So they're going to redact certain information off of the stuff that you can't have, like people's phone numbers or social security numbers and stuff like that. But what this does is, if they ever hid anything, from them that they didn't turn over, it's a great opportunity to see if they make a mistake and give it. It took me 13 years to get a thicker file than the one that they gave me before trial. They gave me 45 pages before trial. They gave me 345 plus pages 13 years later. Something about the system, when it's corrupt, and they know they wrong, they still will hold things from you because they just don't want you to be able to have a defense. So start there. That's always a great start. Don't run, and you can do it if he can do it if you feel like it's best for him, but don't run and give a bunch of money to these attorneys that don't have no wins under their belt. Don't run and just throw money away. It's better to spend that on a private investigator. Review this case, go talk to people, find out if you can find any new information, any new evidence, any new witnesses. Look into the lives of those who handled the case and see if they've mishandled other cases. But go to the roots. Think outside of the box, because the people that set people up and put them in prison, they think outside of the box to try to make sure that you don't ever find out what it is that they did. But let's talk, Brother Carl.
I'm ready for that. I talk, try to figure out something, because he's been locked up already for a while. Our family going through the same thing your family went.
It's definitely some simple things that can be done right now, just to start, like, get the ball rolling and look at what's there. Some very simple things to do right now.
Okay, cool. So you said at a point, Doc, that you didn't feel worthy enough to be able to do some of the things you did. What event or what occurrence took place that made you discover that you are worthy? And or when was it at that point? How did you know you was worthy? What happened in that moment? What kind of breakthrough that you experienced that you discovered, hey, I am worthy of this?
Right. There was a day that I was in level 4 prison in Michigan. Level 4 prison is a very high level to be in, meaning you're locked down 23 hours a day. You out 1 hour, and that 1 hour you get your shower, you can fix some food, you do it, you make your phone calls, you do all that within that 1 hour. You work out, everything you're gonna do in that 1 hour, then you back in the cell. And so what we do is your cellmate would put in general library calls on different days than you would, to kind of give you the cell to yourself. So my cellmate was out of the cell, and it was a really hot summer. The windows don't open. not at all. They don't open. There's no circulation. It was extremely hot in there. It was the summertime. It was 2002, summer. And I remember being in the cell, and I sat down on this concrete slab that's, the seat to the concrete desk that's coming out of the wall. And I sat there, and I remember just feeling the need. I was losing everything at this time, like, people not responding to my letters, phone calls are not being answered. I'm losing everything. And, like everything. My house was gone. My car was left on the street. Somebody crashed it up. Everything is just gone. And I remember asking, I said, I just want to be the type of man that can hold on to something. I'm losing everything. I need to grow so that I can hold on to something. And I was very specific about, just growing physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually. I knew that my growth was rooted in my spirituality. I knew it. I didn't know what it looked like though, but I knew it. And I didn't know what I would look like being better. I had no vision in my mind of what I looked like better, but I knew I wanted to be better. And I said it out loud. I was in the cell by myself, and I literally said it out loud. So it was in that, I think that was the first time that I really felt that if I don't say it, I might not get it. If I don't say it, I might not get it. Now, I didn't know at that time that was really a prayer. You know when it's a prayer, when that level of sincerity is just there. That's why, when we in trouble, and our feet is in the fire, and the pressure is on, and our back against the wall, that's why our prayers be most sincere. When we in that type of situation. That's why God always makes sure that he balances our life with enough pressure and enough ease, because he's keeping us sincere. He's keeping us focused on him, because as soon as we think we can do it by ourselves, oh, this is easy, I got this. No, he keeps enough on us to know that we have to rely on him if we're going to carry this thing with this. And I felt it. And I believe that when I acknowledged that, in that moment is when my real growth started to happen. My female friend at the time, maybe several months after that, she wrote me and she was like, "It's something different about you." She was like, "It's just like," "It's just something different." She like, "I can't really put my finger on it. Something different about you." And this is the person that motivated me on how to read and write. I sent her a letter, a chicken scratch letter, as she called it, when I was in the county jail. And she was like, "Don't you ever send me anything that looked like this again." She was like, "It's misspelled words in here. It's missing words. It's sloppy, and they don't have no emotion in it. You too smart to be sending me something like this." I married her about 1.5 years ago.
Congratulations. A good friend to have, man. Good friend to have.
Hey, that's a friend to have right there. I'm just gonna put that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're complete opposites in every way. We don't even see colors the same. I don't know what's wrong with her eyes, but we don't even see colors the same. But she's always been a motivating factor in my life. I met her 13 months before I was arrested. 13 months before. And she answered every phone call for 20 years.
Wow.
A great friend.
That's a keeper.
Always she's bent on doing the right thing.
Wow.
She's not going to lie to you. She's not going to lie on you, and she ain't going to lie with you. She's straight down the middle with it. And she's always been that way, even as a young woman. So, of course, when I got out, I had to have her.
Wow. Look, man, I wanted to say when I raised my hand earlier, you say you was scared of fireworks. Man, let me tell you, nobody was more scared of fireworks than I was. I would run, scream, holler. And I'm from New Orleans, so we eat a lot of seafood. I was afraid of cooked crawfish. I thought cooked crawfish was alive. And after they boiled the crawfish, my sister and my cousin used to come scare me with the little crawfish things. I was scared of flying cockroaches. I don't know what y'all call it in Michigan. I was scared of everything when I was a kid too, man. I don't know how I grew out of that, but I'm glad I did because I was scared of everything. And we had flying cockroaches all over the place. We had little mice and little rats all over the place. I stayed in projects when I was younger. I was scared of all that stuff, and I would scream to the top of my voice. You would have thought you was hearing a little girl. So when you say that, I resonated with that. It's like, oh man, I'm glad I'm not the only one that was scared of fireworks. Good lord. So
Yeah, I remember my mother coming to get me from behind the couch. She came in the house looking for me, came to get me from behind the couch, and she took me back outside to show me it was nothing to be afraid of, Yeah.
I hear that. So I did a little homework, and I'm gonna ask you some questions about some of the quotes I pulled up. This one quote right here from the book. It says, "I found ways to be uncomfortable, so that I could constantly remind myself that I was somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be or wanted to be."
Yeah.
Found ways to be uncomfortable. Explain that.
In prison, I noticed immediately that there were men in there that had made themselves at home. And they would do things and make things and build things in order to make their cell more comfortable. They would build shelves inside of the locker. They would, sew their clothes, outfits and coats, and order gym shoes, and just things that made, them more comfortable. And I decided day one that I was not going to do things, even at the sake of my feet. I have to get pedicures every week now for the damage I did to my feet, because I wouldn't order any shoes. I'm like, I'm not ordering shoes.
Right.
I see these guys walking around here. They look happy to be in prison in those shoes. I am not ordering those shoes. But I never been the type, I grew up around alcoholism and drug addiction. And I'm blessed to have had it have the opposite effect on me, because it was connected to seeing people out of control. And I always desired to have peace. So I associated drugs and alcohol with the reason that this environment is like this. So I've never been a drinker. I've never been a smoker. And in prison, people are looking for ways to escape. So they find ways to get drugs and stuff in there. They make alcohol. Y'all from the South, so I'm sure guys in prison can make moonshine better than they make moonshine in the woods.
Yes, indeed. Let that sugar turn into alcohol. Let it sit there for a minute. Yeah.
So they would do things in order to make things more at home. And I refused on every level to get comfortable in prison. So I would find ways to make myself uncomfortable, because that pain reminded me that I was somewhere that I didn't want to be. In the summertime, I wore prison blues all year long. Even on days where I could have wore a t-shirt, I wore my prison blues over the t-shirt, buttoned all the way up to the top, shirt tucked in, and that's how I'm going to work out. I'm working out like this. And I pushed myself to the max every day for 20 years, every day, never relented, not a single day, until the last day, when they called me, and I went to the control center the day that I was going home, and I took the blues off and I put them on the floor, and the officer came in there and was like, "Yeah, pick those blues up and put them over there." I said, "Them ain't my blues, man. Them yours. You pick them up. I'm not picking up nothing." So So for 20 years, I wore them, and I made sure that I made them look better than everybody blues in there, because that's the way that if I got to wear this clown uniform, I'm gonna make it look better than everybody's around. And in 90-degree weather, I worked out in prison blues. And in the state shoes, which are very uncomfortable, but I did not want to buy the Reeboks that they sold. And I didn't want to buy the what's the other shoes? They're actually pretty comfortable. I have some now, but I did not want to buy them because I did not want to, even buying an extra Foot Locker to put stuff in. I refused to buy anything that made it seem like I was like planning my future in this environment. I refused to do it.
I had another question to what you just spoke to. I'm curious to know how much of that discipline that you exercised on the inside followed you once you got released, to make sure that you never allowed yourself to get so comfortable where you didn't have an opportunity to grow, and develop and experience things. How am I trying to say this? Like I want to know, like, how did you kind of decipher between, okay, now I'm out, there's some things that I can experience, some things that I can enjoy. Like, how were you able to strike that balance between realizing that, hey, I got the freedom to enjoy some of this stuff, but at the same time, I want to take from what was otherwise a negative experience from me being locked up. I want to still take the discipline element of it to make sure I don't stay in my comfort zone, that I continue to build upon that and allow myself to, again, to grow and develop in ways that prison might have restricted me from doing or limited me from doing. But now I have the freedom to go to level up, to do it at a much higher plateau. So I'm kind of curious how that transition happened for you with that discipline, as well as just giving yourself permission to experience life. Like you said, now I get now I get pedicures every week. I didn't do that before. Now I treat myself to a decent pair of shoes. I didn't do that before. What did that process look like to break from that? I guess the best way to say it, that institutionalized mindset into, hey, I'm a free man, able to do, all types of things without limit. How would that transition process look for you?
A lot of things that helped me be successful in prison. In principle, I hold on to those things in life now. There's some things that my wife just was like, no, that's not going to work. that's just absolutely not going to work. But staying up later and getting up earlier than everyone. I still have the work ethic that it took for me to prove my innocence and get out of prison. That same work ethic, I still have that same work ethic. You're not going to outwork me. When I was in prison, and my workout was the best in the system, you're not going to outwork me. It's not the same anymore. That's one of the things I lost. But that same work ethic is still there. You're not gonna outgrind me. I remember walking the prison yard one day, and I just looked and was like, there's a warden that's running this entire prison. This is a small city. It's a warden running a city. He has an administration. He has deputy wardens. He has assistant deputy wardens. He has captains and lieutenants and sergeants. And each one of those sergeants, they have different officers up under them. They have a financial aspect to this facility. They have to feed this facility. They have food coming in and out. They have other orders coming in and out. They have a mail system. They have all of these different things. And I said, you have this one person that's running this. And if he can run this, and this is just a aspect of his life, because he leaves work and he runs his home and whatever else he has going on in his life. If he can do that, I could implement systems in my life and build an even bigger reality too. So even some of the things that harmed me, that system harmed me, I implement systems in my life in order to keep my life running and supported, and moving forward. So of course there's some things that just doesn't fit. I had to learn how to communicate in a softer environment. Prison is very aggressive. It's very masculine. It's very hard. It's very concrete. The actual environment is concrete and steel. And culture comes from the environment that it exists in. So the language, people in prison talk louder because it's always loud. So they have to talk above all of these other voices. So existing in a country like that for 20 years, and then now you're in a new country, you have to learn the new customs. So my wife worked with me on that. We came to an agreement early on. She like, listen, this is when we were dating. She was like, listen, let's put our dating to the side for a second. From friend to friend, is it okay if I tell you when you are behaving like you in prison? so we came to an agreement that, like no matter what, like, I'm not gonna take it personal, point it out, and we're gonna keep it moving. And that first year, like I said, I went to a restaurant just quickly. I know we running out of time, but I'm here all night if y'all want to. But we went to a restaurant, and there were two young Caucasian ladies that was working. We walked in. You have to wait to be seated, so they were standing right there at the desk. And we walked in, and they said, it's like a 45-minute wait. I remember like telling some sort of like little joke, or like my equivalent to, socializing. And I seen the two ladies look at each other like, well, I'm in prison for 20 years. I don't miss anything. If I see something, I got eyes in the back of my head. I don't miss nothing. Mm-hmm. So when we walked out, I told my then girlfriend, my now wife, I said, did you see the way they looked at each other? And she was like, we'll talk about it later. So I'm like, okay. So later on, my wife was like, your words come off harsh sometimes, or you coming off aggressive. And I was like, no, I'm not. She was like, yes, you are. So it took time to kind of learn how to clothe my thoughts and my communication in a way that it doesn't smack up against people, like the environment that I was in, to where it's necessary to talk to people a certain way, even in friendly conversations, because any sign of weakness in any way in that environment, you literally have predators in there, different types of predators, sexual predators. You have people preying on people to rob them because their family don't send them any money. And the other people, families do send them money. They want it. They want to eat. They want the things that they perceive as valuable in that environment. So you have different types of predators in that environment. So they're always sniffing and looking for weakness. The officers are looking for weaknesses. They're looking for something to exploit. So that culture of that environment produce a certain type of standard of communication, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I did have a quick follow-up, and this is surrounding the subject of forgiveness. I'm interested in knowing, how did you embrace forgiveness as it pertains to, the legal system that puts you in prison for something that you didn't do, the individuals, whether they be friends and family members, who just basically forgot about you while you were on the inside, and then you get out and you might have encountered a few of them. Hey, we glad to see you. And you're thinking to yourself, I've been here 20 years. I ain't heard from you. You got a letter, a visit, or nothing like that. Now you happy to see me. I'm curious, what was that forgiveness process like for you? And what was that initial response to you the first time you encountered somebody that you were like, you should have been at least checked in on me or something, and now you're facing them 20 years later? And
have you talked to somebody I know? So it's a chapter in my book called Apology Tour. This is when I'm talking about, in that chapter, when I learned the value of asking others for forgiveness, But I also learned the value of forgiving myself as well. Now, I had nothing to forgive myself for dealing with this case, but I did have to forgive myself because I blamed myself for not being smart enough to battle with those that were lying against me. Like, I carried guilt around for allowing them to do that to me. So on my apology tour, I wrote letters to, I was a womanizer. I wrote letters to everybody that I can even think of. I had my cousin driving around getting addresses off houses. Like, you remember that one girl that lived on the third house? Go get her address. I want to send her a letter. I had him riding around, and I got a really solid, my right hand, a really solid guy. He rode around everywhere getting addresses for me. And I went on my apology tour. I wrote letters and apologized to everybody I can think of, for the most minor of things to the most serious of things. And what that developed in me is an appreciation for forgiveness. But the most important thing that I learned was everybody's not going to participate in the process of forgiveness, but you still have to forgive. So people that I felt had wronged me, I had to forgive them, even though they had done nothing to participate in the process of forgiveness. And I got pretty good at doing that, to where when I walked out of prison, and coupled with that, not only did I get good at forgiving people, and I was intentional about forgiving people. It's something about being buried alive and then getting pulled out of the grave that you don't care about the dirt and the mud that got on you. All you care about is the fact that you're breathing. So when I got out of prison, I was extremely happy. Everybody had a clean slate. But I protected myself from putting myself in a position to where I can be used by people. But I wasn't mad at nobody at all. But the thing is, you talk straight to it. Like, how did those conversations go? That people didn't do the right thing. And I have family members that did not do the right thing. Most people turned their back on me. They thought I was dead in there. They thought they would never have to face me again. They thought I was done. Had a natural life sentence. The people of the state of Michigan versus Marvin Cotton, and they won. They thought they would never see me again. And they turned their back on me. People that had done a lot of things they turned their back on me. And they was expecting to have to answer for that when I got out. And they didn't, because I wasn't even mad at them. But the awkwardness, a lot of them are crushed under the awkwardness of knowing that they should say something, but don't know how to say it. So here I go smiling. How you doing? Yeah. It's great seeing you. And they looking weird. They're acting weird. Some of them even assassinate my character behind my back, because it makes them feel, just a little better.
Empowered.
Because although the easy thing would be to say, listen, I was wrong. I don't know how to fight the state, and I turned my back. I thought you was done. There's nothing I can do. I'm sorry. I hope you live life well. And that would be good enough, even though I didn't need it. That would be good enough. But for most people, doing all of the things to avoid responsibility, to avoid the duty that's placed on us to do the right thing in that type of situation, even after you've done the wrong thing, it's easier to come up with all of these other things instead of just saying, hey, listen, I did you dirty. I did you wrong. And I haven't had a single person to say that to me yet.
Wow.
And I lost contact with 90% of people in the first year.
So Dr. Cotton, so how do you feel about like being compensated or some kind of compensation for being wrong convicted in a prison system? Do you think?
Well, that's definitely a battle that's ongoing. I think one of the biggest misperceptions is when somebody's wrongfully convicted, when they walk out of the door, they hand them a big bag of money on their way out the door, and say, I'm sorry, and go. But what the state does, or the city, or whoever you're suing, when you walk out the door, they hire lawyers to fight you. Although it was the government that reopened my case and took the lead on getting me out of prison, another wing of the government hired lawyers to fight me.
Wow.
So even to the last question, because those questions kind of intercept. You have people that wasn't there for me, and then now they think I'm rich, and they treat me horrible because I'm not taking care of them, even though they wasn't there for me at all. It's so weird to get a phone call from someone saying, "Man, I've been trying to get in touch with you for 2 weeks. You ain't respond to my text message or nothing. I was in prison for 20 years. Ain't hear from you not one time. Now you calling checking me because you ain't heard from me in 2 weeks."
Wow.
But that's it happens. It not only does it happen to me, it happens to a lot of I'm a part of an organization that represents wrongfully convicted men and women, and we all go through the same things. We all have people turn on us about money, and make things about money. They answer 2 or 3 of your phone calls while you're in prison, and they think you should buy them a house, to where people make you feel like a lottery ticket, and never check on your mental health. When I tell people my story, most people always, and I appreciate you guys, because conversation ain't come up to the end of this. Most people, conversation come up at the beginning. It's the first thing they ask. They never ask if I'm all right. They never say, "How you doing? Like, are you all right? Are you good? Do you need anything?" First thing they say is, "Man, you about to get paid." I would like, no one would commit to, we'll give you $10 million if you go do 20 years in prison. Nobody's going to take that bet. Nobody's going to take that. So it's really not something that someone in my position even want to hear somebody say. It's hurtful. And oftentimes the scenario is, you can't hard check it, because you don't want to seem like the guy that did 20 years and now you're just checking out on people. But it is hurtful. And oftentimes I'm left having to smile a little bit while I gently bring them around to, my mental health is most important. I'm okay. I'm good. And like I said, those last 2 questions, they cross more than family, friends that wasn't there, and then money and what people think you should be doing for them, and they treat you like trash if you don't.
Man, you mentioned one of those quotes that I was getting ready to ask you, and you already touched on it. The part about being buried alive, but now you're not buried alive anymore. Now you can breathe. So when you say buried alive, do you mean buried in the circumstances of everything just coming down on you at one time? And because everything was coming down on you at one time, you wasn't able to breathe, but now this burden has been lifted and you can breathe now. Kind of expound on what you mean by being buried alive.
I told you I felt extremely numb when I walked out. Couldn't feel anything. Probably in February. I got out in October 1st, 2020. Maybe a couple of weeks into February, I was laying in bed, and I heard a noise, and I woke up. I was like, kind of half asleep, and I heard a noise, and I woke up looking for, where's this noise coming from? And it was me crying. And while I'm looking for this noise, it's still coming out of me, to where I was stuck, like kind of half asleep, but crying, and the realization that I had that I wasn't in the grips of prison anymore had finally hit me. And it was scary, because I'm like, how the hell am I crying and looking for where this noise is coming from? But it was liberating as well. It was like all the time I had been waiting to wake up, and now I'm realizing that it's real. I called my wife, who, we wasn't even dating at the time, because she wouldn't date me immediately. She like, no, get your life together. We friends. I don't want to mess up the friendship. I'm like, no, let's mess up the friendship. But I called her one night. It was like 4:00 in the morning, and I called her, and she answered the phone. I'm like, I'm out here. She like, I know. I'm like, I'm out. And I had been out for a couple of weeks at that time. So, being it, I don't think I can describe it any other type of way other than being buried alive. And prison is a deathly environment. It's a tomb. It's literally built like a tomb. Most prisons, I know here in Michigan and other places as well, they build them. They build them to be a little lower than everything around it, because for tornadoes and stuff like that, they can't evacuate the prison, so they build them to kind of like exist within a ditch. It's like a grave. It's cold. It's a cold world type of environment as well. It's a lot of negative things that take place in there, and it's like being buried alive. You're in prison. It's like you're literally buried alive, and then being buried alive under a natural life sentence. There's not a lot of natural life sentences being overturned, being vacated, being exonerated. There's not a lot of that going on. So for that to happen, and the way that it happened, to where it was the government, the prosecutor office took the lead on getting me out of prison. That does not happen. So walking out of there, and it hitting me, it was easy to not be mad at nobody. It was easy not to be mad at nobody. I did the work while I was in there. There's a lot of guys come out bitter. It is. But I did a lot of work in there, and I still do work, but I did a lot of work in there on myself. And not, I even feel pity for those that set me up. I feel pity for them. It has to be horrible to be so numb to send innocent people to prison. Like what has happened to you, and what have you done in life to where they probably sleep better than me. I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for those that they may lie. I feel, to have to exist within that type of fear to where you would do that. I feel sorry for them. I don't feel angry or mad at them. I feel sorry for them.
So would you say, well, anybody else have any questions before I keep going? Because I don't want to hijack nobody's space.
No, I'm just again, I'm just again appreciative of your transparency throughout the show. And I don't know if you're aware, we have a conference coming up, men's conference coming up later this year, man. I would love to have you. I mean, it may seem like a little shameless plug, but I would love to see you be a part of that experience with us in July, man, because there's some brothers who need to hear your story.
Yes, indeed.
This is, I mean, because not just because of the dynamics of it, but it's just the opening up, the willingness to be transparent and be vulnerable. I mean, that's so important particularly amongst men, because we just don't do that. We just don't share like that. And the way you've been sharing, man, is powerful, and it's been a blessing to us. And I know it would bless others who have an opportunity, for whether it's those who are listening right now, or if somebody ever had a chance to witness it, we can talk about that offline. It just came to my mind. I was just thinking,
Yes,
man,
indeed.
you need
That's a good idea.
that's a conversation we need to have. We need to make
Yes,
this
indeed.
happen. We need to experience you on another level, because you've shared a powerful story tonight, man, and this has been beautiful. So I thank you for your openness in the way you've shared tonight, man.
So I appreciate that. Let's talk.
Yeah, man, I'm still chewing on that. Finding ways to be uncomfortable. I'm still chewing on that.
That's powerful.
I mean, there's so much that I could draw from that, and I know we ain't got the time. But yeah, I'm sticking with that quite a bit. So would you say at this point you are redeemed, or you're still traveling down that road to redemption?
I'm sorry, you kind of went out for a second.
Yeah, well, just we're just elaborating on the aspect of how profound this interview has been, and I know Brother Joe was talking
kind of
about
breaking up a little bit.
I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me now? Am I still breaking up? Am I breaking up, fellas?
We can hear you pretty good. I think his connection might be breaking up a little bit.
Okay,
that might be causing the miss.
Yeah. Are you with us, Doc? All right, he's gonna wait.
Is everybody else hearing okay?
Yeah, we got you.
We got you. Can you hear us good?
Okay, yeah. That's better now. That's better now.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, we was just kind of just elaborating on the aspect of the whole interview and how profound it was, and and of course we're gonna talk about offline on how we could possibly get you down there for the men's conference and talk about some things like that, because your story is so profound and so spirit filled and spirit led. There's no way in the world that a brother can hear this and not walk away changed and touched in some kind of way spiritually from your story. And so and like I said, that finding ways to be uncomfortable thing is still resonating with me. There's so many other questions I could ask for that, but I didn't ask for the sake of time. But one more question before we get out of here. Do you feel like you're redeemed, or are you still traveling down that road to redemption?
I don't think just like healing, I don't think redemption is a destination, but a ongoing process.
Gotcha.
I think when you look at the word redeem, when you redeem something, you get it back. You redeem, some money that's owed to you. You get it back. You don't get it back until you fulfill your purpose. You have to pay with fulfilling your purpose in order to redeem that title or that status of redemption. You have to pay for that. And I believe the only currency is to fulfill your purpose. You have to fulfill your purpose in order to exist on that plane of redemption. So, apology for I told you I went on my apology tour, and asking for forgiveness and forgiving. And I believe all of those things are steps to position us to do our purpose. But I believe redemption and purpose is attached to each other. You can be good all you want, but you can also be good for nothing if you're not fulfilling your purpose. So you can never step on anybody's shoes anymore. That makes you redeemed? If you're not walking in your purpose in those shoes, that you're not stepping on nobody's toes in, then you can be redeemed.
Awesome. Well, look, Doc, we're so honored and so privileged that you graced us with your time. You probably could have been doing anything, spending time with the wife, but we appreciate you spending an hour and a half of your time to bless us, man, with your story, and we appreciate you. Like I said, when I introduced you, I knew what I was getting. I don't think my introduction was good enough, to be honest with you.
Appreciate that.
So when you talk about, you thought I was talking about another person. I didn't think the introduction was good enough, but so profound and so deep. a brother that you are. I just, like I'm awestricken right now because of your perseverance through all that you had to go through, and you're still 45 looking like you're 25, man. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man, we appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Marvin Cotton Jr. Get his book, Better Not Broken. It's out there right now. It's probably on social media. It's probably, digital distribution networks out there and everything. Just go out there and get it. And we appreciate y'all coming. We appreciate y'all tuning in. We on every fourth Sunday. And we got just about a minute and a half. Doc, you want to plug in any of your social media outlets?
My book is definitely available on Amazon. It's an Amazon bestseller. It's very easy to get there. On social media, you can find me by putting my name in, Marvin Cotton Jr. or Dr. Marvin Cotton Jr. I am on LinkedIn as well. I think I'm in the process of doing new Facebook pages as well as Instagram pages. So my website is also www.betternotbrokenllc.org. You can follow a lot of things that I have going on, and I will be doing a lot of traveling. I already do a lot of traveling, but I'll be traveling, and I do have a new book that'll be coming out soon. I'm not ready to start promoting it, but I am going to go around the country with this next book. So look forward to that.
Cool. Once again, we thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Once again, I'm your host, Hilton Young, a.k.a. GF Soldier. I want to thank my co-host, Pastor Alex Allen, my brother Joseph B. Roberts, and then the motivator himself, Brother Carl Roberts. We are here every fourth Sunday. Until next time, y'all be blessed and y'all take care of each other. Peace.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching My Brother's Keeper podcast, a safe space for men here on the Stephanie M. Seton Sunday Show channel. Healing, empowerment, transformation.